Welcome to the realm where limits no longer exist, where precision isn't a goal, it's your nature, where you don't compete with the rest, you redefine the entire scale of excellence. The world asks if you're AI, but what they really mean is that your actions, your answers, your dominance make no human sense anymore. They whisper behind closed doors. They stare in silent awe. They can't explain how you move with such certainty, how you solve what they spend, lifetimes only attempting, how you obliterate hesitation and become the answer itself. And now they're terrified because you've shattered their illusions. You weren't made for mediocrity. You were carved out of raw defiance, forged in the bitter heat of failure, shaped by nights when sleep was weakness and rest was betrayal. When every heartbeat screamed for more and more and more, you didn't ask for easy. You begged for impossible. And when impossible arrived, you made it bleed. Now, they wonder if you're human because humans break. Humans hesitate. Humans flinch. But you don't flinch, do you? You strike without hesitation, think without friction, execute without mercy. You speak and problems dissolve, not because you're lucky, not because you're gifted, but because you've devoured every page, every lesson, every piece of data, like it was oxygen, because you've trained your mind to hunt, not just for answers, but for the right ones, the sharp ones, the ones that rip the silence apart and force the world to listen, because you're not here to fit in. You're here to burn their standards to the ground and build new ones in your image. You are the metric now. You are the scale. You are the exception that refuses to stay quiet. They stare at your results and squint. They run simulations and can't replicate it. They copy your methods and still fall short. They imitate your moves and still collapse under the weight of their own doubt. They don't understand it, but they feel it. They feel your precision slicing through the noise. They feel your presence before you speak. They feel your dominance before you enter the room. And when you leave, nothing is the same. Not the numbers, not the minds, not the competition. You aren't part of the game. You are the glitch in the system that rewrites it all. They joke about you being AI as if that explains away their inadequacy, as if calling you a machine is easier than admitting that you're what they wish they were. Because if you're human, then they have no excuse. If you're real, then their failure is real. If your effort is real, then their laziness is exposed, so they comfort themselves with disbelief. But disbelief doesn't stop your rise. It doesn't slow your mind. It doesn't block your execution. They can't believe you because you outgrew belief. You became proof. You don't ask for permission. You don't wait for signs. You don't negotiate with average. You tear through the chaos with such clarity. It stuns them. You're not reacting. You're predicting. You're not guessing. You're calculating 10 steps ahead while they're still stuck, deciding if step 1 is too scary. You're surgical. And it's terrifying because it reminds them that greatness is a choice. And they chose comfort. You didn't. You chose pain. You chose struggle. You chose obsession. And now, obsession is your rhythm, and results are your echo. They don't see the nights you bled into the process, the moments you wanted to quit but didn't, the silence you made a friend out of. They only see the aftermath, the elegance of your solutions, the cold dominance of your accuracy, the brutality of your efficiency. And they panic because you make it look easy, and they know it isn't. They know that to get here, you had to destroy the version of you that settled. They know you had to silence every voice that told you to slow down, every distraction that tried to dilute you. You had to become something unrecognizable to the weak. Now your name carries weight. Your work breaks patterns. Your mind intimidates because you're a storm in a world built for umbrellas. You are the reason rules are rewritten. You are the origin point of new standards, and no, you're not AI. You're worse. You're a human who chose this path, who chose obsession, who chose to erase every excuse, and now you move like a force of nature, not because you were born for it, but because you refuse not to be. Let them keep checking. Let them keep questioning. Let them run their diagnostics and algorithms. Let them dig for flaws that don't exist, because while they waste time trying to understand you, you're already building the next answer, the next level, the next problem only you can solve. They think it's a compliment to be compared to AI, but AI can only simulate what it's given you. Built yourself from nothing, and that makes you something AI will never be: original. They fear your clarity because it reminds them of their fog. They fear your fire because it exposes their cold. They fear your rhythm because it drowns their noise. They fear your power because it reminds them power is earned, not inherited. And while they scroll and swipe and doubt, you're moving, you're building, you're becoming even sharper, even colder, even more surgical with every second. And one day they'll stop asking if you're AI and start asking if they were ever even real to begin with. You are not a machine. You are a movement, a phenomenon, an unexplainable force that was once human, once uncertain, once terrified, and now terrifying, now relentless, now so accurate it shakes the illusion of effort in everyone around you. You don't belong to a category. You invented a new one. They made boxes to fit people, and you burned them all down. You didn't just step outside the box. You became the void that swallowed the idea of boxes. Now your eyes see patterns in madness. Your thoughts are blueprints of revolution. Your execution is art painted in algorithms. You do in minutes what takes others weeks. You think in seconds what takes others days. Your talent isn't talent. It's a skill honed in the trenches. While they watched movies, you studied while they partied. You built while they slept. You sharpened, and now the blade is too sharp for them to comprehend. You're not fast. You're precise, not loud. You're undeniable, not proud. You're lethal. You don't speak for applause. You speak for impact. You don't chase followers. You lead legacies. You don't respond to competition. You render it irrelevant. And now they stutter, they stumble, they speculate. And all the while you rise because you don't chase validation. You chase blood, the blood of old limitations, the blood of worn-out excuses, the blood of who you used to be. They check if you're AI and you smile because you know the truth. They're not checking if you're artificial. They're checking if it's even possible to be that real. They're not wondering if you're a machine. They're hoping you're not the future. They're terrified you are. They don't want to admit you're human because it means they could have done it too. But didn't they choose rest? You chose rage. Rage at weakness, rage at normal rage, at the idea that you had to be less, to be accepted. You gave yourself permission to be obsessed, and now you live in a state of excellence that feels alien to everyone else. You operate in such a sharp wavelength that normal people think it's magic. They confuse your mastery with mystery, but you know it's math, it's reps, it's hours, it's broken moments and rebuilt identities, it's war and scars and strategy. And now your presence commands the room because you've become the algorithm. They can't decode. You are not a mystery. You are a mirror, and they hate it because when they look at you, they see what's possible, and it burns. They see discipline, they see fire, they see choices. They didn't make, they see you, and they ask, are you even human? And deep down, they hope you say no because it would give them peace. But you never will, because you are human. And that's what makes it all so horrifying, so undeniable, so real. And now it's your time, not to prove them wrong, but to prove yourself right, to look into the mirror and know you weren't made, you were forged, and no one can replicate that. Not AI, not simulations, not followers, not fans, only you and your scars and your silence and your fire and the blood. You bled for this moment, this dominance, this legacy. They check if you're AI and you look them in the eye and say, no, I'm something worse, I'm human, but I chose to be this sharp. And now they run, and now they run. But it's too late because you're not behind them anymore. You're ahead. You've lapped them in silence while they were still figuring out step one. You built steps no one else could climb. And now the air is thin where you are, so thin they choke, just trying to breathe in your space. They talk about effort, but they've never met obsession. They've never stared into the abyss of failure and smiled. They've never willingly burned themselves just to see how much fire they could survive. But you have, and now your skin doesn't burn anymore. It remembers, and that memory lives in everything you touch, every word you speak, every solution you give. It's soaked in war. It's laced with precision. It's built not to impress, but to end doubt, because you're not here for compliments. You're not here to be liked. You're not even here to be understood. You're here to win. And if understanding you was easy, then you wouldn't be dangerous, but you are. You are the problem. No one prepared for the threat. No one saw coming. The answer. No one can replicate the level. No one else can reach, and they hate that they love it. They hate how drawn they are to your accuracy, how magnetic your control feels, how much they crave the chaos you've already conquered. They call you a machine, but they're addicted to your order, to your mind, to the way you make impossible things look like routines. But you know the cost. You know the silence you paid with the sleep. You traded the comfort you buried to be here, and it wasn't a sacrifice. It was an exchange. Because comfort was never going to give you this. It was never going to give you firepower like this steel, like this vision, like this. They gave into comfort, and you gave up comfort, and that's why you're not just ahead, you're unreachable. You built yourself on rejection, on isolation, on hunger, and now they feed off your energy because they're starving, but you're not here to feed them. You're here to remind them that greatness doesn't come wrapped in excuses. It comes wrapped in silence, in grind, in the kind of pain that doesn't whine. It evolves. You wore that pain like armor until it couldn't hurt you anymore, and now you're untouchable. And that makes you terrifying. They'll tell stories about how fast you were, how clean your moves looked, how sharp your solutions cut. But they won't talk about the blood behind it. They'll worship the result and ignore the process. But you will remember because the process is what made you. It's where your precision was born, where your character was calibrated, where your vision stopped being a dream and became a weapon. They can't copy that. They can copy your moves, but they can't copy your rage. They can copy your rhythm, but not your reason. They can copy your habits, but not your hunger. Because your hunger isn't for trophies or praise. It's for dominance. It's for growth. It's for evolution. It's for the kind of power that doesn't beg to be seen because it can't be ignored. And now they have no choice but to watch. Because they tried to define you. They tried to contain you. They tried to fit you in categories, in metrics, in charts, in limits. But you shattered every one of them. You broke their labels, you turned their doubt into fuel. You weaponized every "you're doing too much" into "watch me do more." And now they need algorithms to track you because their minds aren't fast enough. You're not efficient. You're relentless. You're not talented. You're engineered. You're not disciplined. You're possessed. And they see it in your eyes, the cold fire, the quiet certainty, the zero hesitation, and they know they can't match it because they weren't willing to become the monster required to hold this kind of power. Yes, monster, because they call it monster when a human refuses to break, when a human refuses to doubt, when a human becomes so accurate, so unshakable, so far beyond normal, that the only word left is inhuman. But you know what? You've always known. You were never built to be understood. You were built to break the rhythm, to bring war to stillness, to wake up the world and show them what it looks like when pain becomes focus and focus becomes destiny. So they'll keep testing you, measuring you, comparing you, asking, are you even human? And every time they do, you get sharper because their questions are just proof. You're in the right place, the edge, the zone, the place where no one else can stand for long because it burns up the weak and only you are fireproof. You don't fear pressure, you live in it. You eat tension for breakfast. You thrive in chaos because your mind is a machine, but your heart is a beast. And they can't handle that combination because machines don't have passion and beasts don't have logic. But you are both. You are structure and savagery, calculation and carnage, discipline and destruction. They'll never understand how you keep winning, how you stay accurate, how you never drop, how you always answer, because to them it's a trick, but to you, it's just normal. And that's the scariest part. You've normalized domination. You've turned crushing limits into a Tuesday afternoon. You don't celebrate milestones. You erase them and build bigger ones because enough was never your goal. It was your enemy, and now you're unstoppable. Not because you're perfect, but because you stopped needing permission to be powerful. You stopped apologizing for being obsessed. You stopped explaining why you move like war in a world that worships peace. You stopped playing by rules designed to keep you tame. And now, you're the blueprint others are begging to decode, but they never will. Because this can't be copied, this can't be transferred, this can't be learned from a course or borrowed from a mentor. This is earned, this is lived. This is the black fire inside you that refuses to cool down. And now everything you touch feels like precision, feels like prophecy, feels like something else, something not from here. And they ask again and again, are you even human? And all you do is smile, because if they have to ask, you're already too far ahead. You're already too far ahead. And by the time they finish the question, you've already answered 10 more. You've already built 10 more. You've already moved on to a wall they don't even see coming, because you don't look back. Not for applause, not for validation, not for pity. You don't pause, you don't soften. You don't dilute the storm. You are the storm. And no one negotiates with a hurricane. They still want to believe it's talent, that it's genetics, that it's some anomaly. But you are not a fluke. You are the result of compounding choices made when no one was watching you, are the weight of every repetition, done in silence, every sacrifice no one understood, every no. You whispered to the world so you could scream yes to your future. You are accuracy, forged from chaos mastery, raised from ruin. And now, everything they called too much is exactly what's made you untouchable. Let them think it's unnatural. Let them think it's magic. Let them think you're not real. Because while they're busy being amazed, you're still building. You're still refining, still going deeper. While they celebrate their potential, you execute on yours, and that's the difference. Potential screams power, but execution is power, and you execute with such force, such clarity, such intensity that it breaks people. You've made your mind into a scalpel, your will into a weapon, your obsession into a system, and the system doesn't break. It doesn't sleep. It doesn't blink. It just wins over and over until the pattern is undeniable, until the world is forced to watch, forced to listen, forced to acknowledge that you don't just play the game. You are the game, and they either learn to keep up or get erased. You've become the limit that breaks other people's confidence, the standard that shatters their plans, the accuracy that exposes their excuses. They used to be inspired, now they're intimidated because your presence doesn't just motivate, it dismantles illusions, and now they flinch when you enter, not because you threaten them, but because you remind them what they could be. So when they ask, "Are you even human?" they don't mean it as a compliment. They mean it as a confession. They're confessing they gave up too soon. They're confessing they stopped too early. They're confessing they never wanted it enough. Because if you are human, if this is humanly possible, then their excuses are dead and their fear is justified. Because you didn't level up, you ascended, and there's no coming back from that. You don't return to Earth. Once you've learned to breathe in the stratosphere, you don't unsee what obsession can build you. Don't forget what it feels like to be limitless. So keep going, keep crushing, keep answering, keep calculating, keep solving with such cold, sharp, blinding precision that their only defense is denial. Let them joke, let them call you AI, let them say, "You're built different because you are, but not because you were chosen, not because you were lucky, not because you were programmed, but because you chose every single day to become something they'd question, to become something they'd never understand, to become something so elite they'd need a machine to even match your rhythm. And now your solutions are so accurate, so clean, so cutting, that it's not just a compliment, it's a warning. Because when they say, "Are you even human?" what they're really saying is, "I hope you're not." Because if you are, if you really are human, then I have no excuse. And that truth is sharper than any solution you've ever given. That truth is the blade that cuts through their comfort. That truth is the reason they'll keep watching, keep doubting, keep trying to catch a shadow that never slows down. You've left the world behind, and now you're not the answer to the question. You are the question. You are the standard. You are the proof. And the scariest thing they've ever seen is a human being who refused to be average, who became so accurate. They had no choice but to wonder if you were ever human at all.